We are live at Pluralsight Link. My name is Scott Pletcher, and I am joined today by some really interesting people. Very cool people as well. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We'll start over there with Mish.
Thanks for having me here, Scott. I'm Mish. I'm on the DevRel team with GitHub, and I came all the way out from Australia. So thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm Rachel Lee Nabors. I'm with AWS Amplify. Came down from Seattle.
Perfect.
I'm Angie Jones. I work for Block as the head of developer relations for TBD, and I've joined from New Orleans.
Very cool. Who's this guy?
I'm Jeremy Morgan, developer relations at Pluralsight. And what we've brought you all together to talk about today is imposter syndrome. So, I think everybody's kind of felt it at one point or another. Everyone has it to different degrees. But we just kind of wanted to talk about imposter syndrome and how you personally deal with that. I guess how you define it first, right? How you would define it for yourself, because I think it's probably different for everybody. For me, it's just kind of that feeling of, do I really belong here? Did I get lucky in a series of things through the last 20 years? Should I even be here? That kind of thing. But I guess we'll just kind of go around the table and kind of everyone's maybe personal definition of it and kind of how you address it. How do you deal with it? Or do you deal with it at all? So we can start with Mish.
Yeah, sure, I'll
you're
start.
Right across from
I
me,
think
so,
mine's very interesting. So I'm obviously on the developer relations team at GitHub, and people often have this idea that if you're in DevRel, then you've obviously come from a developer background. Now, I didn't. So there's often times where I'm sitting in a room and I'm going, oh, I didn't learn or come through in the same way that everyone else has. So you often have that feeling of, do I actually belong here? But I think what it really comes down to is being really comfortable in yourself and what you know, and then being able to go, hey, the skills I know and the knowledge I have is really valuable to this group of people. Here's how I can help them, but also here's what I can learn from them. So I think it's always that whole idea of never thinking that you know too much, but never feeling like you ever don't have a place to be and something to share. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, you asked a slew of questions there.
I tend to do that sometimes.
I'm not going to take the entirety of this meeting to answer each of them. But there is a real issue with imposter syndrome. I think part of the reason imposter syndrome exists is because many developer teams or teams you might end up on aren't necessarily safe places. Depending on your background, you'll probably feel like the odd duck out, especially if you're coming into a team made up of people who are very similar to one another. I know some people, for instance, joining a project management team full of women who went to school together feel like, maybe I'm not safe admitting what I don't know here. Imposter syndrome goes away when we feel safe to admit what we don't know and reach out for help from other human beings. Humans are very social creatures, and feeling like we can do that tends to absolve us of that feeling of not good enough, not belonging. Oh my God, I sneaked in here, but there's been a mistake because I'm the one duckling that doesn't fit.
I love that. I've had very similar experiences. When I first came out of college, I joined a big company, and my team was all white males, and I'm like new grad, black woman, and so and I went to an HBCU, so this was really different environment for me, and automatically I just kind of felt like I didn't belong, and so I was really quiet in at the tables where we're discussing problems and brainstorming. I would be really quiet because the ideas that I had were so very different than everything that was being discussed, and I just felt like, well, that means because I'm wrong, I kind of got dinged for that in performance reviews and, not being present and in the moment. And so I was forced to kind of get over that imposter syndrome. Well, I guess I'll just share my silly ideas so that I don't get a bad review again. And quite the contrary. They didn't perceive it as being silly at all. It was unique and it was different. And, we even went on to patent some of those ideas. And so that really showed me, like, I'm not an imposter just because I'm different, right? I use my differences now as my superpowers, and I've become more comfortable even if I'm one of one in a group setting, right? And I think that's a really powerful way to combat imposter syndrome. Now, I'm not saying it never comes back up, because as techies, we're always faced with new things and new problems that we don't know how to solve, and it's really easy to find ourselves back in that position where, we feel like an imposter, like, I'm not cut out for this. What was I thinking taking this role? You know what I mean? But, you can climb out of that.
Yeah, for me, one of the most pivotal points in my career, kind of where I am today, was 2016 AWS hackathon. And I had always wanted to participate in the hackathon. For years, I had gone to the AWS reInvent, and a hackathon is basically just an effort where a bunch of people get together and create teams, and then they try to build something together. And so I always wanted to do that. But I just didn't have the confidence to do it. I didn't have the inner strength. So 2016, I said, okay, I'm done with this. I mustered up enough courage. It was all I could take just to walk into that room and sign up. And turns out I was put on another team with individual people as well. And our team was beautiful because each person had a specific specialty that fit together with the other person. It was just quite by random. And going through that process put me together with some folks that I'm still in touch with now to this day. Well, as the day goes on, I knew that we had a pretty good idea. And these strangers slowly became a pretty tight-knit team. And as we went into the evening, we made it to the semifinals. And then came the finals, and we won. Our team won, and it was just the most amazing thing for me. Is like in that morning at 8:00 a.m., I was shaking, trying to go in there with the confidence to say, I can do this. I deserve to be here, because I thought I didn't know anything. But 12 hours later, we walked away with the trophy. And it was really kind of an important lesson for me, because it taught me to trust myself and just get enough confidence that if I can just get my foot in the door, if I can just walk through that door, then I think the rest of the stuff is going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
So
I think it's really important to hold on to those wins as well. I often express on Twitter and things like that, like, celebrate the small wins. And that's for this very reason, right? Just kind of keeping a list of cool things that you've done and achieved, no matter how big or small. That's one of my go-tos for if I have a bout with imposter syndrome. I set a timer, 2 minutes, and the task is write down, 10 or maybe 20 things that you've achieved, right? And it could be within the last 5 years or something like that. And the timer is key, because you don't have time to let imposter syndrome come in and talk you out of anything. You're just trying to write. So the big number is good. Even if you don't get to 20, I'll have 5 things that I can look at and say, you know what? I'm not so bad after all,
Yeah, that's
all right,
incredible.
I can do it.
Yeah.
I've
That's
done
a
tough things
great point.
before.
Does anybody else have any other tools that they use to help?
Yeah, I love the hackathon idea. Back in Australia, I'm known as the hackathon queen. Done over 120 hackathons now.
Oh,
I don't know
wow.
what number is now, but it's well up there. And we have the whole, like, hacker, hustler, hipster type thing. And when I talk to people about creating the dream team and creating those types of teams that can win hackathons, it's not about creating a team of the 4 best coders to build this one, pristine looking tech thing, but it's about understanding what skills each person brings to the table and using that to your advantage. And I think that's the one of the coolest things about hackathons, because often you're just thrown in a room with 4 people and you're like, cool, here's my strengths and weaknesses. What are yours? Let's just like ignore all our weaknesses and hopefully our strengths will pick that all up. And that's obviously what you've done because you've been able to get to that stage of winning that. And so I think that's a really key tool as well when you're thinking like, okay, do I belong in this room? You know, am I in the right spot? Just thinking back to, okay, what do I have that I can offer these people? And then what can I learn from that too? So I think that comes back to your like idea of like learning, right? Is I think that's something that developers are really pretty good at when you like actually sit down and chat to them. And tech people you generally speaking like to share what they're working on, what they're learning. So if we all do that, then no one should ever feel like they don't belong in a room.
But sometimes you will feel like you don't belong in the room, especially if you like taking on big challenges. I'm a person who likes to bite off more than I can chew, jump in the deep end of the swimming pool. I trust I'm going to be able to swim my way out. But I got to tell you, usually when I find myself in there, and often even right up to the point that it's time for me to move on to something else, I will feel like, oh my God.
Why did I jump in the pool?
Oh my. Oh no. Oh no. And it's a lot. But there's a great book. I think it's called The Lessons of Tea. It's written by a Japanese woman who studied the tea ceremony. She chose a different path in life. And the book is not about the path that she took, which was kind of bucked the norm of what her family wanted for her. But it's about her learning this really rigid ritual that centers on mindfulness and connection and learning from her teacher, and how frustrated it was for her to, like, it comes so easy for other people. Why do I keep doing this? I've been doing this for decades. And it's just a beautiful book about how sometimes, you know, just because it doesn't come as easily to you, or you don't have the background or the experience of the people around you, it doesn't mean it's not worth going and doing for yourself. It doesn't mean that, you know, just because you don't fit in, just because you might not have that background, that experience, that does not invalidate your personal experience and your personal journey to learning that skill, diving deep, accomplishing what you came for. And I really loved reading that book because it lit a fire in me to double down and continue even through the hailstorms of the challenges that I was experiencing at that time.
That's great.
I really like something you said earlier about essentially having the psychological safety to admit the things that you don't. Admit, you kind of touched on that as well with the hackathon. Here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses. I find that really helps like alleviate a lot of pressure from me if I walk into a setting. And the reason I may feel like an imposter is because I think that everyone thinks that I know this. So if I can disarm that by saying, yo, I don't know that. I know this. I don't know none of this, and I gotta learn it, right? I'm free now. I can't feel like an imposter. I've been very truthful about my strengths and my weaknesses, and I find people are pretty receptive to that. That's not, and I'm not gonna say like it doesn't happen for anyone, but that's not come back to bite me. It being honest, but I also think I have a lot of privilege and experience where it's almost refreshing for people to hear me admit things I don't know. And that might not be the same for people who don't have as much experience or clout in the game already.
Also, there's something to be said for if you can't be honest about what you do and don't know with the people you're with, it might not be the right people to grow
That's
you.
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Can you really reach your full potential holding back around the people you are supposed to be teaming up with?
So, some people out there in the audience are going to be more in kind of the leadership or lead roles or supervisor roles. What sort of things, and I know all you have your specific roles in your organizations, and probably you're more senior in those roles. How can you help facilitate trying to dispel some of this imposter syndrome for some of the more junior people in your organization? What are some techniques or tools, or how do you manage that?
Go ahead.
You go
Okay.
first.
I like what I just said, what I know and what I don't know, but also go in a meeting and ask like really basic questions, right? That other people might be thinking, maybe they're not. Maybe I am the only one that doesn't know this. But I'll say, look, I don't understand what you're saying. All of these like acronyms you're using, foreign. Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, right? And I think that sets a tone for the entire team that it's okay not to know things. It's okay to ask questions. You don't have to feel ashamed of that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what you were just saying, which is creating that culture where people feel like they can speak up. I was at a conference in Poland a week and a half ago, and that was one of the questions I got asked was, what do I do if I have something to say and I feel like I can't speak up? And I said, well, often that's not just on you either. Often that comes down to the culture that the company has created. So you need to be in a environment where speaking up is okay, and being able to share that type of, hey, look, I don't know this. I don't understand the acronyms you're talking about. I don't understand the product that you're presenting. Being able to say that and feel like you're actually supported with those around you, that doesn't happen everywhere. So coming back to what you were saying, if you are in that situation where that kind of culture isn't available, maybe you need to think about not being in there.
One thing you can do as a leader is like asking the dumb questions. I will do this when I'm in a meeting and I know that someone doesn't have context, but I can see they're like, they're going, help. And I will be like, okay, can you explain to me again what that particular KPI measures? And I will be the one who is asking, is kind of I never single out for the people in the room who don't do that. Just one thing that you can do as a leader that many new leaders forget is that showing humility is one of the strongest things you can do. You don't say, I'm stupid, I don't know anything. You don't get to say that. You got to walk the fine line between being like, I expect you are the experts and you are here to inform me, and we will, if anyone has a question, my door is always open. I'm always happy to hear new ideas. Just pop by anytime, explaining clearly how you expect people to interact and that you're excited to hear from them and excited to get their fresh eyes on these challenging problems. That's privilege that you get in a leadership role because nobody expects a director to know every individual team's product, and nobody expects a team lead to be able to review every pull request. So you do get to ask those questions, you do get to surface them for the team, and by doing that, you're making people feel more comfortable.
Yeah, I really like that idea. And that's one of the things that I think it's really important at the leadership level is for leaders like all of us, who've been around for a while, cannot forget that feeling in the beginning, how it felt when you just got out of school or you just started in tech and you didn't know anything, and just feeling scared to speak up, scared to do anything. Like none of us should let go of that feeling when we become leaders, when we become senior, because then we can say, hey, it's absolutely okay to do this. It's completely okay to not know. And in fact, if you're suffering in silence, that's bad. So ask any question you can. And yeah, that psychological safety, that's one of those things that just kind of opens things up. And then when they become leaders later down the road, they'll be doing that same thing automatically without even thinking about it, right? Because
you can also facilitate some of those situations with brown bags. For instance, you get someone new on the team and you see that they have something new to the team. They've got that special little, maybe
everything's new and shiny kind of thing.
Yeah. Maybe they're awesome with metrics and nobody on the team thinks about metrics, and that's a weak spot. But you can tell they feel a little off. You could invite them to give a brown bag at a regularly scheduled meetup that your team runs and share what they know, because then when they share their strength, they will feel stronger. Once they feel their teammates asking them questions, they'll feel like, oh, I bring something valuable here, and that can help them blossom. So you can bake that kind of knowledge share, and we are all experts in our own field, into the culture through guided activities.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to kind of welcome some of those new folks into your organization, is to find a way to let them demonstrate their value very soon, very quickly. And then that kind of said, okay, well, now I know what part I play in this greater thing, right? So we have a few minutes left. Is there, just summarizing, any parting thoughts that you might want to give to the viewers out there?
Yeah, one thing that I learned, and it always sticks with me about this particular topic, is that Maya Angelou, like a prolific author, said, I don't remember the quote exactly, but it was something like, I've written 17 books or something, and every time I'm writing the next one, I think to myself, this will be the time they figure me out, right? And it was just like, what? You're amazing, and you suffer with imposter syndrome? So that, like, it just really sits with me anytime I think about it. It's like, no, I know people who are amazing, who are not imposters, and imposter syndrome tries to get to them too. So that just helps me.
Wow.
Yeah, I think people just need to remember that no matter who you are, and no matter what team you've come into, what experiences you have, you're always going to have something that is valuable that you can share with the team. And I think just remembering that and knowing that is really key. Again, going back to the whole hackathon idea, something I talk about a lot in hackathons is that, with the dream team, it's, the more diversity you have within the team, and that's not just, people say diversity, I think men and women, or more so, people of color and people of white. But diversity is everything, right? It's everything from age, race, gender, social status, where you grew up, even things like salary. Those things all determine diversity, and the more experiences you have, whether it's on a hackathon team, whether it's on a product team, whether it's in a sporting team, or whatever team you're on, those experiences collate together to build the best ideas that the team can have. So just always remembering, no matter who you are and what have you experienced, you can share something and you have something value to contribute.
Excellent.
Absolutely. It's like building a sports team, the team that goes to the Super Bowl at the end of the year. It's not necessarily they have the best quarterback and the best linebacker and the best each of those things. They have the best set of people who can work together towards a goal. And that's pretty important for tech teams to build, to try to get some diversity, get some different thoughts, different ideas. And then, as a collective, all of a sudden they're the best team. They're going to the Super Bowl because everybody gelled together. Everybody works together great. So,
Just like with wildlife, you're afraid of the bear, but the bear is also afraid of you. You may be experiencing a feeling like you don't belong there, but I'm willing to bet money that there are other people in your group who feel the same way. And if possible, try to find out who those folks are. Maybe you can be more comfortable together.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. If you're tuning on in any one of our live stream channels, there's going to be some more live streams today. Plus, there may be a few surprises that pop in and out. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and
yes,
see
thank you so much.
See you on our next live stream.